The playoffs are far and away the most exciting time of the year for basketball fans everywhere because it's the time when the game really starts to heat up and competition gets taken to another level. It's where legacies are made because every minute of every game is more important than it is in the regular season. Some star players step up to the plate and cement themselves as all-time greats that can handle the pressure and thrive in it, while others have a tendency to shrink in big moments, but every season you get a new clean slate to try again. For today's video, we'll be discussing 5 star players that I believe are under the most pressure to perform this postseason. These are players that, for a variety of reasons, have a lot to prove this year because of things that have happened previously in their careers, whether it be overcoming a hurdle they haven't been able to do so, or if it's bouncing back after previous disappointments. Before we start though, I want to thank PrizePicks for sponsoring this video. PrizePicks is the perfect service for all of us basketball fans here because when you're involved, it makes watching the games every night so much more fun and engaging. Basically, it's an application that provides you with lines on all kinds of individual player props, such as points, rebounds, assists, three-pointers made, amongst others, and you simply have to choose whether you believe they will record over the set amount in the line or under the set amount in the line. Make your selections, wager however much you want to, and if your picks hit, you can win some big money. For some picks that I'm looking at making for today's slate of games, I'm thinking of going with Zach LaVine to make over 2.5 threes, James Harden to score over 20.5 points, and Bruce Brown to dish out over 2.5 assists. If this sounds at all intriguing to you, then go use the link down in the description of the video to sign up today and use promo code REFERENCE to receive a 100% deposit match bonus up to $100. Once again, thank you to PrizePicks for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to the topic at hand. The first star player we'll be discussing today under a ton of pressure in the playoffs this season is an obvious selection, being James Harden of the Philadelphia 76ers. James Harden has been a big topic of discussion throughout the year for a variety of reasons. For starters, after going to the Nets to form what was supposed to be an unstoppable big three with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, that pairing fizzled out by the trade deadline, and some people have been critical of the way that he handled going about getting traded to Philadelphia. Then on top of that, he is one of the league's superstars most notorious with coming up short throughout his career on the big stage. Some of this criticism he gets is probably a bit overblown because the reality is that during the peak Warriors dynasty, he and his Rockets teams were the ones that were putting up the toughest fights against them, but he also did have quite a few moments where his play did become a detriment, so all in all, he is still without a ring and is in the hunt for one. The 76ers brought him in at the deadline, hoping he could be the missing piece to the puzzle, giving them a boost alongside Joel Embiid. He has looked noticeably slower out on the court lately, possibly because of nagging hamstring injuries, but nobody is going to want to hear those excuses, so he needs to do what he can to help the Sixers make a deep playoff run in the eyes of most viewers, hence why he's under pressure. Now, to follow that up, the next star under a ton of pressure this postseason is Kyrie Irving of the Brooklyn Nets. Harden may not have handled things well at the end of his Nets tenure, but you also have to look at some of the decisions that Kyrie Irving made this season as a major catalyst in that situation fizzling out. Him making a personal decision that resulted in him missing over half of the regular season did hamper the team's ability to compete at the highest level that they wanted to, and now they're stuck in the 7 seed, facing off against the league's best defense in the first round because of it. Before the year, the Nets were viewed as the title favorites, and now they're at serious risk of being sent home in the first round because of a situation that was definitely avoidable by Irving. Ever since he left Cleveland, he's been trying to prove that he can be the guy on a contender outside of LeBron's shadow, but in his last season with the Celtics, he struggled and contributed to their second round exit against the Bucks, and last season he was having a decent showing in the playoffs before unfortunately going down with an injury in the second round, so he has unfinished business on top of having to overcome the setback he forced on the team this season. The next star player under a ton of pressure this postseason is the player destined to be crowned the 2-time MVP, being Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets. Admittedly, I'm a little late with this video topic as some of the first round series have already played 2 games, so I know what kind of start the Nuggets have gotten off to, but regardless, he would have been under this kind of pressure anyway. The MVP is the highest individual honor in the NBA, and Jokic is about to win it for a second time in a row. When you rise to that level of play, you will start to get held to the standards that a multiple-time MVP winner gets held to, and they are expected to be able to carry their teams no matter how lacking. They may not be legitimate contenders, but you have the MVP of the league, so you should at the very least be able to compete hard in a series and make games tough for their opponents. But through 2 games against the Warriors so far, the Nuggets have been completely run off the floor, and Jokic himself has had the worst plus-minus out of any player from both games. That simply cannot happen, so moving forward he needs to do a better job leading his squad. The next star player under a ton of pressure this postseason is Jimmy Butler of the Miami Heat. Now, last night he was sensational, so right off the bat I'll acknowledge that, but it is still very early and he will have many more hurdles coming his way. Ever since Jimmy Butler helped lead the Heat to the NBA Finals in the bubble, he's been floating on the reputation as a big game player that can lead a contender. The Heat are the #1 seed in the East, they'll have home court advantage until the finals, and they have a dominant defense, so Butler has everything needed to make a run around him. The truth of the matter is that outside of the bubble, Butler hasn't always been that big game player that he's been pegged as, though, and you don't have to look any further back than his showing in the playoffs last season, when the Heat got swept, where he shot 29% from the field in that series, and he got outscored by Bryn Forbes. We want to see the Jimmy Butler that we saw in the bubble this year, because if we get that Jimmy, then the Heat are legitimate contenders. As the 1 seed, they are expected to be able to win any series, but obviously we have to wait and see whether or not that happens, with an interesting test against the Atlanta Hawks up first, where they're already off to a strong start. And finally, the last player we'll be discussing today under a ton of pressure in the playoffs this year is Chris Paul of the Phoenix Suns. Chris Paul is one of the all-time great point guards, but his career is still missing one thing, and that is a championship ring. Last year might have been his best opportunity to win one to this point, but this season the Suns came back looking even more dominant and ready to win it all, and Chris Paul is once again a major catalyst in all of it at the age of 36, soon to be 37. Chris Paul is another player that, fair or not, has been labeled by a large group of basketball fans as a playoff choker who consistently comes up short, and while those kind of claims are definitely outlandish and overblown to a degree, the fact of the matter is that Paul's time is running out to compete for a championship. The Suns were far and away the best team in the NBA this season, finishing with 8 more wins than any other team. There are no excuses. The Suns are loaded. They've got elite defenders around him, shooters upon shooters to space the floor, an elite shot creator in Devin Booker, and one of the best young big men in DeAndre Ayton. The Suns will go as far as Chris Paul leads them, and that will obviously come with a lot of pressure. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below who else you think has a lot of pressure on them this postseason. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.